Do you believe that a woman once lived for over 300 years without a single wrinkle on her face? Do you believe that her youth was not preserved by herbs, nor magic, nor God, but by the final terror frozen in the eyes of children drowned in their own blood? In a land no one dares name, there stands a castle swallowed by pine, wrapped in silence. No map shows it. No man returns from it. But for centuries, villagers speak of smoke rising from the tallest tower, warm, red like breath, like blood. She was a noblewoman, a hunger wearing the skin of grace. And if you think this is just a legend, wait until you hear what happened to the last man who entered the halls. This is not a ghost story. This is a warning. I am the daughter of darkness, born of shadows and flame. My origin is sorrow, my essence, a broken name. Now spin the wheel, light the pyre, weave me anew in crimson attire. Burn away the skin of my mortal guise, cast off the husk of my former size. Let me rise, let me rise. Yes, I'm talking about that woman again. This time, though, we're going north. So grab a mug of hot chocolate and a few marshmallows, because we're headed to Hungary. Now, we're better to discuss all of these goings-on than the place that inspired it all. I haven't been to Eastern Europe in years, so I'm excited to see it again, especially the architecture. Look at this beauty, okay? Now let's get to the good stuff. There are names that history dares not utter aloud, names that rot in the margins of forgotten manuscripts whispered only by the dust of monasteries long buried. Among them is Countess Varga, whose story, to this day, makes the villagers of Kultenswald seal their windows at dusk and murmur prayers not found in any church. She was not born evil, they say, but shaped, as iron is shaped in fire and pain. Born in 1563 under a red eclipse, came into a world that had long since grown tired of women. Her mother, Countess Ilona, died days after her birth bled dry from a labor that had lasted 3 days and 3 nights. The midwives claimed that the baby did not cry, that her eyes were open from the moment she left the womb, and that she stared at her dying mother with the calmness of an old soul. Her father, Lord Varga, was a man of silence and secrets. He ruled the northern highlands with a cruel order. They said he slept in his armor and never touched a mirror, was raised in silence, in a castle that smelled of damp stone, incense, and decay. Her nursemaids were mute, her governess was blind, and her tutors came and went, never staying past the first winter. She spoke late, but when she did, it was to ask a question no child should. What color is blood in the moonlight? By age 12, she could recite the book of Psalms backward. By 14, she dissected rabbits with the elegance of a surgeon. But it was not knowledge she craved, it was preservation. Of her youth, of her beauty, of the perfect stillness of the moment before something dies. At 15, she was married off to Count Arishi, a military nobleman known for his brutality on the Turkish front. Their wedding was a muted affair, was 34 and reeked of iron and old wine. He gave her a hunting knife as a wedding gift and said, for the things men cannot see coming. They never had children. Some say she couldn't. Others whisper she wouldn't. In the long corridors of Castle Arishi found solace in solitude. She wandered the halls at night in white gowns and bare feet, touching the tapestries like they whispered secrets. The servants grew pale. The animals refused to enter the east wing. And once, a maid swore she saw the Countess speaking to the portrait of her dead mother Rezavit were answering. But nothing truly changed until the winter of 1589, when was brought home in pieces laying by Ottoman Sim. Did not weep. She ordered his remains sewn together and laid out on the dining table. She sat across from him for 3 nights, eating in silence. And then, she smiled. Not from grief, but from a freedom she had never known. The months that followed were strange. Servants began to disappear. First, a kitchen boy, then a milkmaid, then a washerwoman's child. Always those young, always those fair of skin. The townspeople whispered, but no one accused no one dead. She was a widow, and widows were ghosts, given legal power. One night during a snowstorm that blanketed the hills in silence, a local healer named Catalin was summoned to the castle. The Countess had cut her hand on a silver comb. Catalin, trembling, tended to the wound. But as the blood ran down his wrist, the Countess grew still. She dipped a finger into the red trail, brought it to her lips, and smiled. It is warm, she whispered, and sweet, like life itself. The next morning Catalin vanished. Years passed, and the castle grew colder, quieter, richer. Eskin remained unaged. Her cheeks retained a girlish pink, her hair never grayed, while other noblewomen withered behind veils and powder, seemed untouched by time. The peasants said she had made a pact. The priests said she had no soul. The Cheerdenif, they dared speak colder, the lady of crimson snow. By the turn of the century, there were no children left in the village of Countess. No one knew what happened behind the castle gates. No one, until a girl named escaped. And what she said, what she remembered, turned every stomach in the highlands and beyond. But that is for another night. Tonight, we remember only this Varga, the noble woman who refused to age, whose mirrors were always clean, whose gowns were always white, and whose bathwater always smelled of iron. And in the stillness of winter, if you stand at the edge of the ruined castle and press your ear to the wind, Some say you can hear her humming, as if she's still waiting for the next child. As I said, this was based on a true story. The town and castle still exist today. I've actually been to the town. I didn't know anything about the story then, and I think the castle is just a ruin now. I have no idea. It was a really quick stop. But here are some photos I took while I was there. Here's the main square. It's beautiful. These buildings look like they just stepped right out of a fairy tale. And I love the feel of walking around cobblestone streets. It's kind of like stepping back in time. Then we come to the church. This is the Reformed Church of Countess, and it was built between 1784 and 1790. It has a massive tower with a pointy hat on top, and I love how the sun is hitting the side of it in these photos. Unfortunately, it was too early in the morning for me to go inside, so I'll have to do that another time. Behind the church is this cute little park. There's even a playground there. You can see the older part of the town in the background, and all of those buildings have such cool architectural details. And I love these random statues. That's like a monkey holding a pillar up or something. I don't know, what does that mean? After this, I headed over to the museum. This is the Colton Palace Museum. I'm sure there's more to it than just the facade, but I couldn't get over how gorgeous the carvings were on the walls. It almost looks like there's another set of walls within the wall. And I love how light is hitting each section differently, creating these blocks of sunshine. Next, I had to see the castle. This is all that remains of the castle. So sad. If this is what it looks like now, imagine how glorious it must have been back in the day. Also, I loved walking along the wall, because the stones felt so rough beneath my hands. Anyway, that's all I got. This trip was mostly for fun, so I didn't do a lot of research, but I definitely want to go back someday and learn more about the history there. I think it dates all the way back to Roman times. I also need to brush up on my Hungarian history because I don't know much about it. Thanks for joining me on this adventure, and I hope to see you around for the next one. Bye-bye. This story comes from a country where folklore is woven into the very fabric of the land, where ancient tales whisper through the cobblestone street and dance in the flickering shadows cast by medieval castles. In this realm of fire and ice, there lived a woman known far and wide as the Countess of Eretz. The Countess was renowned for her beauty, an ethereal maiden frozen in the bloom of her youth, untouched by the passage of time. Her skin was as flawless as alabaster, her eyes sparkled like sapphires, and her raven hair flowed down her back like a silken waterfall. She held court in a grand manor, a majestic fortress nestled amidst rolling hills and dense, dark forests. Within its high walls, she reigned supreme, surrounded by loyal servants and vassals who bowed before her unwavering majesty. Yet behind the grandeur and the glistening facade, a chilling tale unfolded. For the Countess held a terrible secret, a horrifying ritual that kept her eternally youthful, but at a terrible cost. As the villagers whispered around crackling hearths, they spoke of a cursed castle where the beautiful Countess took her toll. The villagers called her the Blood Countess, and they knew not to cross her path or awaken her wrath. Yet some could unhelp but wonder about the secrets hidden within those cold stone walls and the whispers that echoed through the desolate halls. It all started with the disappearance of a child. No one noticed the first child. Not really. A scullery maid's daughter, sickly, quiet, easily forgotten. She had wandered into the hills and never returned. The snow swallowed her name. The villagers lit one candle, then moved on. But she remembered the way the girl's cheek felt under her hand, the warmth of her fear, the softness of her voice when she whispered, "I want to go home." And most of all remembered the color the bathwater turned, not crimson bright or lively. She had not meant to take the girl, not at first, but the skin beneath her own had begun to ache. Her face, always so pristine, now bore a faint shadow at the jawline. Her chambermaids had whispered, and she had heard it in their voices, the question, the quiet glee, "The Countess is aging, and she could not allow that." So she asked her steward, a man who had served her family since youth, a man whose loyalty had rotted into fear. "Bring me another," she said. He paled. "Another, ... servant, my lady." "No," she replied, eyes sharp. "Another girl." He obeyed, because men like him always do. The second was prettier, from a nearby village, promised work, warmth, a better future. She arrived in the dead of night and was never seen again, but felt it the moment she slipped into the steaming bath. Her skin drank in something more than heat. Her reflection shimmered. The crow's feet faded. The stiffness in her joints eased. It was not just blood, it was innocence, distilled in terror. By the 5th curlow she was no longer asking. She was commanding. By the 10th, she had turned the old wine cellar into a chamber of preparation. They came quietly. She preferred them young, not infants. No, they had no fear, but girls on the cusp of becoming, still unsure, still trusting. She never tortured them, she didn't need to. It was the moment, that sacred second when they realized what she truly was, that sustained her. That gave the bath its color, that made her body hum with impossible youth. She began to smile again. The court noticed. Visitors returned. Rumors shifted from Marguerite to ale. How graceful was it? Italian creams, Transylvanian waters, a Hungarian secret, she said. Nothing. Only bathed. But blood is never clean, even in warm water. And soon, The castle echoed with sounds it could no longer hide. Locked doors, muffled cries, the clatter of chains beneath the floorboards, and the girls there were so many, too many. The servants began to whisper. One tried to run, found her before dawn. She did not kill the girl. She simply cut out her tongue and sent her back to her village with a ruby necklace and no memory. Fear became a perfume that hung in the air. The bath turned darker, and still she was not satisfied. Because every high becomes a prison, and every bath needed to be warmer, redder, louder, she began to keep a book, a ledger, each name recorded in delicate ink beside a single note, laughed before death, bowed her head, screamed, once, eyes open until the end. She was not a monster, she told herself. She was a curator of moments, but somewhere inside her, beneath the silk, the jewels, the still glowing skin, something had begun to crack. Not guilt, but boredom, because even fear becomes predictable, and Countess of Arishi wanted more. As the years crept by, the legend of the Blood Countess only grew. Her chilling visage, forever frozen in her prime, became a haunting specter that loomed over the countryside. Villagers dared not venture near the castle, for they knew that if the Countess set her sights on you, there was no escape from her clutch. Some say that the Countess dipped into dark sorcery to maintain her eternal youth, while others whisper that she struck a pact with ancient, sinister forces to quench her insatiable thirst for life. One day, a young nobleman named Gabriel arrived at the castle seeking an audience with the enigmatic Countess. He had heard tales of her unearthly beauty and was eager to witness it for himself. But little did he know that his curiosity would lead him into a labyrinth of horrors from which there would be no return. The castle staff eyed him suspiciously, sensing the darkness that resided within these hallowed halls. Yet none dared to defy the orders of their cruel mistress. In the depths of the castle Elizabeth awaited, her heart as cold as the steel blade that glinted in her hand. She had sensed Gabriel's arrival, and amusement danced in her eyes. As he approached, she rose from her throne, her gaze piercing through him like shards of ice. Gabriel stood transfixed, captivated by her ethereal beauty, yet unaware of the storm that raged within her soul. Unknowingly, he had become the next pawn in her macabre game. With a flick of her wrist, she beckoned for him to follow. Leading him through a maze of shadowy corridors, she toyed with his emotions, keeping him just out of reach of the truth. Finally, she stopped before a door adorned with arcane symbols. Taking a deep breath, she pushed it open, revealing a sight that would haunt Gabriel for the remainder of his mortal existence. Inside the room, chained to the wall, were several maidens, their faces drained of color, their eyes wide with terror. They had become prisoners of the Countess's twisted desires, their fates sealed within those four cold walls. With a cruel smile playing on her lips, turned to Gabriel, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "This," she seemed to say, "is my domain, and you, dear Gabriel, are about to join us." Gabriel recoiled in horror, his youthful naivety shattered in that instant, but it was too late. The Countess had chosen him, and there was no escaping her grasp. As she approached the maidens, her touch sending shivers down their spines, Gabriel realized the full extent of the nightmare he had stumbled upon. The air grew heavy with dread, and the whispers of the tormented maidens echoed through the chamber, a haunting melody that spoke of pain and despair. Within that cursed castle, the fate of all who crossed the Countess's path was sealed. Bound by chains and shadowed by fear, they became part of her eternal night, their souls trapped in a realm where darkness held eternal sway. The legend of the Blood Countess continued to grow, a chilling tale whispered around campfires to keep the young ones from wandering too far into the night. For in the realm of shadows and secrets, the Countess of Arishi reigned supreme, forever cursed to walk the path of darkness. And so the legend of the Blood Countess serves as a haunting reminder. Sometimes the greatest horrors are born from the darkest corners of the human soul. In the depths of a bygone era, where shadows danced and secrets whispered, the ethereal beauty of the Countess of Arishi hid a chilling truth. Frozen in eternal youth, she dipped into the wellspring of life, forever bound to the chilling echoes of her bloody past. From the producers of Six Underground and Gerald's Game comes an all-new psychological thriller. No one noticed the first child, not really. A scullery maid's daughter, sickly quiet, easily forgotten. She had wandered into the hills and never returned. The snow swallowed her name. The villagers lit one candle, then moved on. But, remembered. She remembered the way the girl's cheek felt under her hand, the warmth of her fear, the softness of her voice when she whispered, "I want to go home." And most of all remembered the color the bath water turned, not crimson brighter, lively, alive. She had not meant to take the girl, not at first, but the skin beneath her own had begun to ache. Her face, always so pristine, now bore a faint shadow at the jawline. Her chambermaids had whispered, and she had heard it in their voices, the question, the quiet glee, that Countess is aging, and she could not allow that. So she asked her steward, a man who had served her family since youth, a man whose loyalty had rotted into fear. "Bring me another," she said. He paled. "Another ... servant, my lady." No, she replied, eyes sharp. Another girl. He obeyed because men like him always do. The second was prettier, from a nearby village. Promised work, warmth, a better future. She arrived in the dead of night and was never seen again, but felt it the moment she slipped into the steaming bath. Her skin drank in something more than heat. Her reflection shimmered. The crow's feet faded. The stiffness in her joints eased. It was not just blood. It was an essence, distilled in terror. By the fifth girl she was no longer asking. She was commanding. By the 10th she had turned the old wine cellar into a chamber of preparation. They came quietly. She preferred them young, not infants. No, they had no fear, but girls on the cusp of becoming. Still unsure, still trusting. She never tortured them, she didn't need to. It was the moment, that sacred second when they realized what she truly was, that sustained her. That gave the bath its color. That made her body hum with impossible youth. She began to smile again. The court noticed. Visitors returned. Rumors shifted from mockery to how radiant she looked, how graceful. Was it Italian creams? Transylvanian waters? A Hungarian secret? She said nothing, only bathed. But blood is never clean, even in warm water. And soon the castle echoed with sounds it could no longer hide. Locked doors, muffled cries, the clatter of chains beneath the floorboards. And the girls there were so many. Too many. The servants began to whisper. One tried to run, found her before dawn. She did not kill the girl. She simply cut out her tongue and sent her back to her village with a ruby necklace and no memory. Fear became a perfume that hung in the air. The bath turned darker. And still she was not satisfied, because every high becomes a prison, and every bath needed to be warmer, redder, louder. She began to keep a book, a ledger, each name recorded in delicate inks beside a single note. Bowed her head, screamed once, eyes open until the end. She was not a monster, she told herself. She was a curator of moments, but somewhere inside her, beneath the silk, the jewels, the still glowing skin, something had begun to crack. Not guilt, but boredom, because even fear becomes predictable. And Countess of Erishi wanted more. A huge thank you to our incredible sponsor, Masterworks, for supporting this video. Years passed, wars came and went, kingdoms collapsed, names faded, but Castle Erishi remained unchanged, untouched, unspoken. Villagers built roads that curved unnaturally far around it. Mothers warned children not to say its name after dark. And yet, sometimes, at dawn, a thin column of steam still rose from its central tower, like breath from something that should not breathe. In 1679, Lord Varga returned to Hungary. He was a scholar, born in Vienna, raised in Prague, educated in Florence. He had studied anatomy, philosophy, alchemy, but always something called him eastward, something buried deep in the blood he did not wish to acknowledge. He carried one name in secret, Varga. It was his grandmother's. No one spoke of her, only that she had been noble, strange, ageless, that she had vanished before his mother was born. But in the family archive, Laurent had found her portrait, Varga, Countess of Erishi. The date beneath it read 1599, but her face looked no older than 20. Curiosity devoured caution. One winter Laurent left his post at the academy and rode north. Laurent armed not with weapons, but with books. He wanted no exorcism, no fire, only to know, to understand. Castle Erishi welcomed him. Its doors opened without touch. Its hallways bloomed with candlelight, and the scent of roses guided him through the dustless air. In the grand salon, he found her, exactly as in the portrait, unaged, unchanged, stood by the fire, turning pages of a book written in no human tongue. I wondered when one of you would return, she said. Laurent's heart froze. You are my blood, she continued, but not my kin. You belong to the world of forgetting. I belong to the crimson thread that remembers. He tried to speak. She silenced him with a glance. I never killed, she said softly. They came to me, willingly, the desperate, the abandoned, the beautiful. They begged to be made eternal. Laurent's mouth dried. But the baths were mercied, she interrupted. You bathe in time. I bathe in memory, in the moment before innocence is lost. It is not the blood that keeps me young, it is the fear inside it. He backed away, but the castle shifted. The walls closed in, not physically, but emotionally, like hands around a throat. He saw them then, the faces, in the mirrors, in the puddles on the floor, in the silver trays, hundreds of girls, staring at him with hollow eyes, not dead, not alive, preserved, held in the moment before they were erased. Not victims, not saints, just held. Approached. You came to write the truth, she whispered. Then write this. Time is the only true predator. And I made it bleed. He fainted. When he awoke, he was back in his room in Prague. The castle was gone. No carriage, no cloak, no diary. Nothing to prove where he had been. Only one thing remained. A single crimson fingerprint on his collarbone. It never faded. He tried to write the tale. No publisher dared touch it. He tried to paint her face. The canvas burned. He tried to forget, but every time he saw a girl laughing, or a child singing, or a woman weeping alone. He remembered the image of bathing in the glow of stolen youth. Years later, on his deathbed, Laurent whispered to his daughter, "If you ever dream of a woman in red, do not follow her. If she offers you comfort, refuse. If she calls you child, run. Because she is not your kin. She is the last wound of history still open, still bleeding." And when he died, they found one strange detail. His blood had turned dark, too thick, too old, as if it had lived longer than him. And far to the north, when snow fell just right, travelers claimed they could see a red tower behind the pine trees. Just for a moment, then gone. But some say if you listen carefully at midnight, the forest hums, not with wind, but with singing, children's voices, soft, endless waiting. Hi everyone, I'm here, thanks for watching. And a special thanks to our sponsor, Masterworks is an amazing platform that allows everyday people like you and me to invest in contemporary art, which historically has been only available to the ultra. Since 2021, their investors have already sold over $40 million worth of artwork at auction, including one painting that sold for more than 10 times its purchase price. When I first learned about Masterworks, I was blown away by the economics. I mean, imagine owning a Picasso, a Real Actual Picasso. Well, with Masterworks you can. Instead of keeping cash in a bank, which frankly pays almost nothing, or in an investment account, which can be volatile and risky, Masterworks provides an alternative. They let you put your money in art, literally. When I worked in an art gallery in New York City in a past life, I saw firsthand how much value these paintings actually hold. The main challenge is that they're typically out of reach for most people, but Masterworks changes that. Here's how it works. Masterworks buys paintings from iconic artists at auction. Then they break those multi-million-dollar paintings up into smaller shares, allowing you to buy a piece of the pie. Literally, after the artwork is purchased, it is stored securely in a climate-controlled warehouse until it is time to sell. Once the artwork sells at auction, the proceeds are distributed back to the investors. Masterworks takes no commission and aims to make selling artwork easy and accessible for all. And since 2021, the Masterworks platform has delivered multiple 7- and 8-figure returns for its investors. With each sale, the app provides liquidity to investors who want to cash out, even if the artwork hasn't sold yet. Over 450,000 people have signed up to join the waitlist to get access. Don't wait. Join today. Go to EO/mythos to join the wait. That's Masterworks EO/mythos. Don't miss out on this opportunity to own a piece of Banksy. With Masterworks, you can own a piece of history. Thanks again to Masterworks for sponsoring this video. So now, you know, she was not a myth, a witch burned at the stake, nor a name erased by time. Vaga was a noblewoman born into silk and stone whose beauty remained untouched by age, not because she was blessed, but because she bathed in the fear and innocence of those who had no voice. She didn't hunt children, she invited them and they came, or were brought, or disappeared between the seasons like petals swallowed by frost. The villagers whispered, the clergy turned away, and the walls of Castle Arishi drank every scream until they became part of the stone. When the investigator arrived, he found no corpses, only warmth and a mirror that reflected the truth too clearly to bear. He fled and died, and her bloodline lived on, carrying a mark, a memory, a curse. Centuries passed, yet the castle remained hidden, waiting, alive. Some say the forest still sings with the voices of lost children. Some say she still walks its corridors. And some, just some, say that if you dream of a woman in red velvet who never blinks and never breathes, do not follow her, because does not age, she does not rest, and she has not finished counting. Now you know, but you won't remember, because she feeds on memory and you are not worthy to remember. You are not worthy. You are not worthy.